is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Hunger Games, the movie. In this episode, RoShawn and I will talk about the first of the 4 films. That's right, 4 films. Don't forget, there's 2 for that final book because they can't resist. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where a dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you?
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm RoShawn. Who started this madness of the third book having to be 2 movies, no matter the size of the book itself?
I genuinely don't know. I want to kind of lay it at their door, and I don't know if that's fair, but also, like, fuck Harry Potter at this point. Yeah. So,
like, I don't know exactly when the movies came out, so I don't know, but yeah, because Twilight did the same thing, right? They took that third book and split it into 2 movies as well.
Oh God, did they? I believe you. I just don't remember.
Yes, they did.
And I know The Hobbit did. And
that, okay, first of all, never mind. That's the podcast. They made that book into 3 movies.
Yeah. They
made that one book into 3 movies. Now, I didn't see the movies, so maybe, it's okay. I feel like it's not okay.
It really isn't. I'll just go ahead and tell you, like, for myself, I couldn't even get through the second movie. So
I believe it.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's a whole separate podcast. So, what did you think overall of the movie?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 6.5.
Okay. Not horrible.
Not horrible.
Not great.
But not great.
So why is that? Give me your main, like, sort of thoughts.
My main thoughts of why it lands so squarely in the middle is because while it did some of the things that I was really hoping to see, which are some of what's going on outside of the games that we don't get because we're in Katniss's POV the entire books. Mm-hmm. And they did that. However, I didn't think they did a really good job of doing that.
Why is that?
I'm not done with my list yet.
Oh! I'm sorry.
The other thing, I specifically said I was really interested in seeing what the Capitol looked like and what the people in the Capitol looked like seeing that brought to the screen. And they gave us a lot of exterior shots. And I was like, oh, that's great. This is exactly what I was asking for. But when you actually look at the people themselves, they didn't go for it at all. Like, really, they just put people in, like, vibrant colors and gave them different colored hair. There was very little of the physical alterations that we read about. There wasn't people walking around with different colored skin, really, like little things like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, but the things that they did well that I liked, let me try to find some things they did well.
Oh my God. I know that you didn't intend for that to sound as brutal as it did, but it really did.
That really came
just
out
like,
harsh.
oh, hold on. Let me try and think of something nice to say.
I was more interested in it and it wasn't quite as boring as I remembered it being the first time I watched it. And that is solely the credit of having read the books, where I was like invested in the story. So it was a little bit more engaging for me to watch.
Okay.
And then the rest of it we will talk about as we go through it, I guess. There were some characterizations that I thought were like kind of tonally off, like Hamish especially. You know, he's just a very different person in the movie than he is in the books. He was much more affectionate towards Katniss in this movie. He was not as menacing. It was kind of like giving lovable drunk uncle, as opposed to tortured drunk who is on the razor's edge himself and now put in this position of trying to help these kids when he can barely keep himself upright, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Also, last shot, and then I swear to guys, as we get through the movie, more positive stuff will come out. But my last little shot is because they opted not to have us be internalized with Katniss, so we don't know what she's thinking a lot of the times throughout this movie like we do in the books. And they didn't give her any sort of like, it would have been awkward, I guess, just having her talk to no one. But I think it could have been done if it was, you know, but.
You mean like speaking out loud to herself, basically?
Yeah, just like muttering to herself, you know, to give us ideas of what she's thinking. There was a lot of like close-ups of Jennifer Lawrence's face to try to convey whatever was happening with Katniss internally. And I'm not sure that Jen was up to the task in this first movie.
Yeah, I get that.
But those are just my quick takeaways. But there were things that I enjoyed, and I did watch the whole movie. I didn't feel like, you know, I didn't fast forward through it or like get up and like walk away in great disgust. There were a couple of times where I rolled my eyes though, and a couple of changes where I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
You heard it here first, folks. I didn't get up and walk away in disgust. RoShawn de Ludovico.
Well, I'm just remembering how badly the first Harry Potter movie went for me. Like, this wasn't as bad as that. Like, you know, long time.
I don't remember that, but I
didn't want to watch any of the rest of the movies. Like, it was a thing that convinced me to continue to watch the movies. Yeah, it was bad.
Oh, God, that's funny. Yeah, I understand that, though. Those movies are uneven. Yeah, okay. So, I will say for myself that it was better than I remembered it being, because I'm very harsh on it in my memory. That said, there were a lot of changes that I didn't really understand the point. And it was like, I hesitate to be the kind of like, well, they should just stick to the books because I want things to be just like the book. I don't want to be that kind of person because they're different mediums and you've got to do different things because you're only able to convey so much, you know, and I understand that. But there were some things that I felt like not only did it not need to be changed, but the fact that they changed it changed the character in a way that I was sort of like, I don't get why you would even want to do this way.
I have some very, very strong words.
Ooh, okay. All right, so let's get started. We open with the, you know, sort of, what do you call it? Just the text of the explanation of what the Hunger Games are. In penance for their uprising, each district shall offer up a male and female between the ages of 12 and 18 at a public reaping, yada, 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 yada. And then we start off with an interview of Seneca Crane with Caesar Flickerman.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, okay.
Well,
Okay, so
yeah. I will say I was there were so many faces in this movie, and I was like, oh my God, where do I know this guy from? Where do I know that guy from? It was a really distracting,
constantly.
like throughout the whole thing.
Yep.
And this
Yeah,
kid
the
drove me
woman who plays
crazy.
Katniss's mother is Trixie from Deadwood. And I was
Oh,
like looking at her,
thank
I was like, where do I
you.
fucking know her from? And then
My God.
because I was like, in my mind, I was like, I know her from something else where she looked just as
Mhm.
shabby, downtrodden, and sort of like, period.
Yep.
What the fuck is it? And I finally like had to go look it up.
Seneca Crane is the guy who remember the movie American Beauty, that Kevin Spacey movie?
Yes.
He's the weirdo kid next door. That's who that actor is.
Oh, really? Wild. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't remember that character well enough, but I remember generally what the part he played.
The kid that plays Marvel is that kid from The Boy. I know you haven't seen The Boys yet, so you wouldn't recognize him, but he's in that,
True.
and that drove me crazy. I was like, who the fuck is that? And it's not even in the movie that long. But yeah, so this is do we have this sort of interview with Caesar and Seneca in the book?
No.
Right. Okay. I don't think we get this much Seneca in the book at all that we got in the movie.
No, we don't get almost any Seneca. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. I'm curious, like, what your takeaway on him is. Like, how did you feel about Seneca being so much more a part of things?
So this was the thing that was weird, because it was like what I asked for is I asked to see, like, you know, what are some things that are happening outside of the games themselves and outside of Katniss's POV. So in order to give me that, you have to invent stuff that's not in the book. So
Right.
I got put in this really awkward position of being like, well, bitch, you asked for this. And then when they gave it to me, I was low-key annoyed by it. Like, what do we do? So that is unfair, an unfair criticism on my part, but it is a criticism. They do a couple of things with him, and the minute I heard Snow's voice, I can't remember if you told me which actor played President Snow, but the minute I heard his voice, I was like, "Oh, we about to get a lot of him," because you know Donald Sutherland is not just showing up for like one scene,
Right? Yeah. That was a particular issue for me, was they clearly needed to come up with stuff for him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work for me, what they
don't have him with his bloody mouth and his bloody napkin.
They do not.
Which was like, what are we doing? They made a lot of changes, and I don't know if it was because of the audience. They thought the market was. They toned down some of the violence in the book. A lot of it, actually. Yes. Toned down a lot of the violence. The removing the hint of sickness around Snow is a weird choice, because that's not violence. You just give him a fucking napkin with some fake blood on it and have him tap his mouth with it once or twice. It's not that hard. There's also AVOXs completely removed. You just have silent servers, but there's none of that, you know, context, which makes me wonder, what do they do in the following movies when we get to a Darius character, like Darius, and then later on when we get to what's his name, Pollux?
Yes, Castor and Pollux.
Like, so are they just removed completely, or does that get explained later? I'm just going down a list of things they changed, but like the Mockingbird pen, there's no Madge.
Nope. That was the thing that really bugged me. The fact that Madge is removed as a character, and that Katniss is like picks up the Mockingjay pin from somebody who is clearly like meant to be Greasy Say.
Mm-hmm. But we don't get to meet. We don't get the name.
It just felt for me like Katniss would never spend the money on like something as frivolous as this pin. So her even asking like how much is just so out of character. It would not even be on her radar. And then the fact that she like gives it to Prim and says this is so that nothing can ever hurt you. She would never just lie to Prim like that. She protects Prim, but she doesn't do it in a way that like you tell fibs to make your kid feel better. She's not that kind of person at all.
Yep.
So that one bugged me personally.
Yeah. They don't tell us about, like she tells Prim, you don't have to worry because your name's only in there once, but that we don't get like any real, like, what does that mean? You know?
Yeah.
What are the consequences of that? I don't even know if they tell us how many times Katniss's name has been put in there.
They don't. She asks Gale, and he tells her how many times he's in, but they don't explain the Tesserae and the way that it works.
Mm-hmm.
There's no understanding of why.
Yes, and that for me is a recurring theme. The whys of things aren't really talked about. And what I mean by like the whys, like the motivations of people, like when we get to Senna, like they completely took the heart out of that for me, the relationship between the two of them. Like there's no, like that conversation, that thing that Senna says to Katniss in the book, where he says something like, you must think we're despicable or
how despicable we must seem to you.
Right? Like that's gone.
Yeah.
How do you cut that line? That is so important to what their relationship becomes, you know?
Yeah.
They also did a really weird thing with the food. There's no mention of like when she gets on the train and how there's food everywhere and how much she eats because how hungry she's been and she can't believe the assortments. Like we get like a shot of like the dining car and like a overview of like a buffet, but like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's her and Peeta like looking around and sort of taking in the opulence of this place, but it isn't paired with the sort of, it feels like what they were trying to do was be like, the opulence is repulsive to them, so they can't enjoy it. And that the only person who comments on how lucky they are, you know, being Effie means that they can't fully enjoy it because she is so objectionable with the way that she frames it. But I kind of felt like the point of it was that they can't help themselves because they have been starving. And that's part of what's so fucked up about it is like they are in a position where they can't like turn down food because that's just hasn't been the way they've been allowed to live. So you can't stand on principle and be like, I'm full. I have no appetite. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So yeah, I was hoping for a little bit more of that. And like Katniss's line about the lamb stew, therefore isn't part of the dialogue with Caesar later.
Yeah. Caesar. We get Katniss singing to Prim in these early scenes as well, which I couldn't remember because I feel like we don't really get her singing at the beginning of the book, or maybe also because when we find out in the later books how she sings again, she begins to sing again, and it's been so long since her father died.
Yeah.
So, but they have her singing like right off the bat here. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they established that as like a character thing for her rather than it being something that she sort of represses. And that's a hard thing to do, I understand, because like if she's repressed it, the only way to show that she used to do that is that you have flashbacks from somebody else's point of view or something. You know what I mean? Or like flashbacks that are kind of irrelevant to what's currently happening. So that's difficult to get across. So I kind of get just going with that. But yeah, no, I also get what you're saying. So, all right, let's the reaping itself, how did you feel about the way that's presented and like Effie showing up and the tension of the reaping itself?
It was it was weird because like there's this whole thing that we know from the books with Katniss's mom and like not being available. Like that's made very clear to us very early on. We don't get any idea of that. There's some ways in which Katniss behaves around her mother the day of the reaping that sort of suggests that there's a strained relationship. Like when her mom is like doing her braid for her and tells her like she looks so pretty or whatever. But Katniss doesn't come right out and say anything until after she's been reaped and she tells her mom like you can't disappear or whatever. So they, everybody's dressed. They're just really leaning into like this Depression era Appalachian kind of vibe, which I was here for. I was like, okay, yeah, this is what it looked like to me. We don't get a lot of information about the sort of like different classes that exist within 12. Like the people who live in, what's Katniss from? The Seam?
The Seam, yeah.
And then there's sort of like townspeople like Peeta's class, like the merchant class or whatever.
Right.
But seeing everybody like all lined up and how bleak it looks and how sort of terrified everybody looks worked well for me. When Prim's name is called, I thought that there would be an immediate reaction from Katniss, like a whimper or like a...
It takes so long, right?
Right? That was weird, right? Okay, I thought it was just me.
Nope. Wholly agree. I didn't remember it taking so long. And so I was very much kind of like, why is she not speaking up? What's going on? But yeah, eventually she does. It just takes a
there's like
long time.
And it's so weird because they call her name and Prim doesn't respond either. So there's this dead silence and Effie has to say the name and like coax her up front. And it's not until Prim actually steps out, then Katniss like reacts. But yeah, as they're all marching towards this reaping, it is like, it's like a death march,
Yeah.
Then the thing, Effie was, I'd seen Effie before, right? Because I had watched, part of the movie Up to the Train, but it was fun to see her after reading. And I did enjoy whoever this actress is. I'm not sure who this is, but I did enjoy her Effie. I have to say that it was pretty much on the mark for me. So I enjoyed that.
Elizabeth Banks. You don't know Elizabeth Banks?
My God. I do know her. And you told me that's who it was before. I did not recognize her this whole time. Oh, that's so wild. I'm like spotting fucking this kid from one movie 20 years ago. But I don't recognize Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, she, I have grown to really, really like Elizabeth Banks and how much she just goes for it when it comes to like kind of goofy roles and stuff. She was in what do you call it? The Power Rangers movie as like the villain. And it was so great. Like I just loved it so much. She just fucking chewed the scenery. It was just so incredibly over this. It was so funny. I loved her. So yeah, highly
wasn't she fucking Donaghy's the woman Donaghy marries on 30 Rock?
Yes.
And she had a recurring role on Modern Family too, where she plays like the friend of the gay uncles, and she's just like a mess of a human being, like party girl, and she's like really resentful that they settled down and have this like adopted daughter now. So she's like real salty with the little girl, like she calls the little girl like the ruiner of friendships and shit like that.
Oh my God.
But yeah, no, I agree. She's a lot of fun whenever she pops up. I can't believe I didn't clock her that that's who this was.
Yeah, I didn't I wanted more from her, like in terms of seeing her in Hollywood in more places than I wound up getting. Like she did that thing with Power Rangers, and I was sort of like, oh, okay, this is like a blockbuster, and then that movie kind of didn't do too well. And I was just like, but wait, just let her cook. But they did not. She kind of, not that she gets no work or anything, but she just isn't. Right. I feel like she deserved to be bigger than she was allowed to be.
She should be with, I can't think of that woman that's in all those Judd Apatow movies that everybody says is terrible. She should be like getting the roles she gets. Who am I talking about? Katherine Heigl?
Katherine Heigl. Yeah.
That's who she should be.
From what I have learned is like apparently just somebody who stands up for herself and got labeled as awful because of
it's difficult. Really? You know what? Yeah. I should have recognized that immediately for what that was. How about that?
It's always on time.
It also took me forever to clock this guy that's playing Gale, who looks like he's 45 to Katniss is like 13.
Look,
this is a problem.
It's so weird because she does look so much younger than him, and I think that they're actually somewhat close in age, but there is something about him that just seems old, and I can't put my finger on it. So
he also it's remarkable to me because I do not find him attractive in this role whatsoever, and he has really grown into his face.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
he was supposed to be the Witcher, and I don't know if they're actually doing that. I wonder.
Oh,
sorry, just an aside. But do you remember that?
What, the show? Or that he was supposed to be?
No, that he was supposed to replace Henry Cavill because for reasons that I still don't fully understand, Henry Cavill was like, I'm not going to be a Witcher anymore. And I was like, that's like the thing you were good at. What do you mean?
I think maybe you're right because I saw something recently about season 5 coming.
So they're doing it. All right.
So
I wasn't sure if they were actually going to go for it or not.
I mean, who knows?
Like, we'll replace you, and then they just never make another season.
That thing I saw could have been AI generated. It might have had 6 fingers. I don't know. I didn't look at it that close. So
true.
You know what I mean? That could have been some fan made art. Like, don't quote me on that shit whatsoever. But yeah, I found the seeming age difference between her and Gale to be a little distracting. But there wasn't a lot of chemistry between them on the screen, in my opinion.
No, agree.
So that made it less disturbing because it just didn't feel sexual. Their interactions and their chemistry didn't feel sexual at all. So like, I know from the books, obviously, that he's got feelings and she's got feelings, even though we don't know what those feelings are exactly. But I didn't really get much of that from this first one anyway. What did you think of Peeta?
I love him. I really do. This actor, I think he does Peeta really well. I think that he has a warmth and a humor that feels very genuine. He's like, for me, one of the better parts of the movie. But okay. What about you?
I liked him a lot in some scenes where he really shined through. Like when he's with Caesar, it was just like Peeta in the book. Like it was like undeniable. Like you're like watching it, you're like, oh, I 100% get it. Like I get why people would fall in love with him. That makes perfect sense. He's so natural up there. Then there are other moments where I felt like his portrayal of Peeta was, how there's like a fine line between being hopeful and naive. There's like a really fine line. And I felt like they have Peeta kind of wobbling on this kind of like wide-eyed innocent and where it's not that Peeta, in my opinion, is necessarily innocent at all. It's just that he is hopeful for a future that's better than what we currently have. And that doesn't make him like this naive, like
a doe-eyed hayseed.
yes, yeah, exactly. And I felt like they didn't maintain that line really. There were some moments like the moment on the roof between the two of them, which was brief compared to, the scene in the book. It was really, really shortened. And again, to your original opening statement about, we understand that the movie is not going to be a retelling of the book beat for beat, because this is an entirely different medium and you have to switch some things around, especially considering the way the book is written. And I understand that you have to cut some things out in order to add the additional scenes of like what's going on in the world outside of the game. But the things they chose to cut and the things they filled some of that time with, I don't think balanced, right?
Agreed.
Like,
yeah.
You want to give me some invented scenes with Seneca and Snow. Okay, that's fine. What I don't necessarily need are long scenes of Seneca in the Star Trek Game Center, like in the war room for the game makers. You can cut out 5 minutes there and give me the roof, And then some changes were just weird. Like, again, I know we're jumping all over the place, but after Katniss's, I don't know what to call it, her alone interview, her final evaluation, when she shoots the pig.
Yes,
they have
score.
They have her like just chilling in the room with everybody, like kind of super casual about that. Doesn't she leave the room and like go to her room and lock herself in her room in a panic about what she's just done?
Yes. Yeah. This was one of those things that I have mixed feelings on, and it's because, and I told you this at the time when we were reading it, like the way I reacted when I first read it. When she shoots the apple, she freaks out and she's like, oh my God, they're going to give me such a low score and I've pissed them off and I've made myself a target and blah, blah, blah. And as a reader, I was like, girl, they're going to love it. They're going to fucking love that. I can't believe that you're even worried about it. This is the exact shit they're looking for in a reality TV star, is somebody who's going to do unpredictable, wild, off the wall shit. They're going to give you such a high score. And everybody in her team was also freaking out. And I was just so like, guys, come on. They're going to love it. How do you not see that? So part of me kind of liked that they had people in that scene who were just like, oh, they're going to be into it. Like, Haymitch was not worried about it. Cinna was not worried about it. And so that kind of just like, for me, it was almost like the writer sort of lampshading the fact that like, yeah, most of us are going to see this coming and it's not going to be as much of a surprise as it seemed to be her in the book. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay.
But that's just pure opinion. I don't have that's not really, it's just because of the way that I felt when I first read it and how frustrated I was that she was like not seeming to be looking at things from the perspective of people who are trying to make a show that's entertaining, when all she talked about otherwise was they only care about what's entertaining. So I was just like, well, how are you going to like keep saying that? But then when that's clearly what's going on, you don't seem to be able to tell.
Right.
So it felt like more consistent to me, but the way that they did it, having everybody there was definitely totally different.
Right. I think that's one of the things that's a little bit missing, and it would be really difficult to do in a movie, is that throughout the books, Katniss is not very consistent, though. She really is all over the place in the books, from hating Peeta to, not trusting him to, she just bounces wildly from one spectrum to another. And she is much more of a consistent personality in the movie because there's not really a way to convey that sort of inner turmoil.
Yeah.
There's a lot of her just like not speaking, looking kind of like off into the distance. And we know something is going on in there, but we don't really know what. And I don't know if a different performer would have been able to do more with that or not,
Yeah.
But and I have to admit, I do kind of miss that sort of really like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an expression that's not fucking like rooted in mental health diagnoses, but that really that swinging from one extreme to another. Let's
Gotcha.
get on the train and talk about Haymitch.
Okay, let's do it.
So, what are your thoughts on Uncle Haymitch?
So, first of all, Woody Harrelson is so good. I just have to say that. He is just always fucking, no matter what he does, he's just committed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the second Venom movie.
No.
But he plays a villain in that is like, it's a villain that could be absolutely ludicrous, completely without anything to like ground them. And he manages to really make you care. And it's not in a way that you're like, oh, this guy's great. It's like in a sort of like, what is he gonna do next? That kind of like bonkers sort of vibe. So
he's always good.
He is, so in that sense, I really enjoyed him. And I felt like casting wise, he's great for Haymitch.
Yeah.
But what you were saying earlier about the fact that he is so much more like warm and affectionate, and that he's missing the kind of bite that he has in the books is 100% true.
Yeah.
They clearly wanted to make him somebody who felt like he was on her side in a way that's a lot more direct than he was in the book. Because in the book, he's on her side, but in a way that it's like he wishes he weren't. All the time, there's just this sort of sense of him being irritated with her, and they really just like completely did away with that.
They absolutely
Which
did.
I get. I kind of get that, but it's like what they did with Tyrion Lannister. They just kind of dumbed down his overall complexity in favor of making somebody that everybody was just going to like a lot.
Yep. Making him likable. They completely, like, I can't remember exactly when on the train it happens, or maybe it's when they get to the Capitol for training, but I know at one point he like punches Peeta in the face for like trying to take a drink or
for trying to take his booze. Yeah.
And, I think on the train we get like him sticking his foot on Peeta's chest to like push him back, and that's like the outburst that we get. The so drunk that I'm throwing up on myself and I need somebody to clean me up, Haymitch, doesn't exist in this universe.
Correct.
And because of it, what it does is like when you meet Haymitch in the books and he's so fucked up, you wonder. I wondered, what the fuck happened to this guy? Like what happened to this guy? And I don't have that with this character. There's not like this like really tortured kind of thing under the surface, barely under the surface. A lot of it's on the surface.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
But I do not want to take away from Woody Harrelson, because he is always just a pleasure to see on screen. And, for what they gave him to do, he was a lot of fun to see. And we get to the Capitol.
You sound so disappointed.
Well, there was a couple of things. Before we get to, she meets Senna, and, I think she gets cleaned up first, so I guess we should talk about the prep team. We have a little bit of the body mod thing here,
because
Yeah.
there's the girl with like the eyelash, but that's like just shit you could do now, you know?
There's the eyelashes, there's some wacky hair, and there's one quick scene. I meant to go back and pause it so I could see exactly what was happening. Like maybe somebody did something to their eyes, not the eyelashes, but like the eyes seemed like really something about her face was like off, but I can't place it. But we don't meet them. Like they don't have names.
No, they are not friendly or silly. They're just sort of like, you know, talking amongst themselves about.
Yeah.
And she says, "What was that?" And they're like, "Well, we were thinking we might have to hose you down again." Which was a weird, really, like, why did we even have that line?
Yeah, that they weren't that like, I mean, they were like shocked at the state she was in, but they weren't ever like that mean and snarky to her. I don't remember them being like insulting to her. And that was it. And so that was, and I know that because I know that they play such an important part later on. I'm just wondering, like, why would she give a fuck about these people?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. That the guy is the one who tells her about hosing her down again. Mm-hmm. And then this girl turns around and she's the one that's got like gold. It looks like gold tattoos around her eyes.
That's what's happening.
So it's not a huge body mod, but it looks crazy just because of it being like this metallic thing,
right?
Along with her really blunt cut hair. Yeah, it's real weird looking. Mm-hmm. Oof. So that's this. What did you think about Lenny Kravitz? Despite the fact that they kind of stripped Cinna's character down.
They gave him some gold eyeliner and that was it. But it was really weird to see him. He is all clean, basically clean shaven. He's got like a little 5 o'clock shadow happening, and very short hair. I had forgotten that he had cut his dreads at one point. I forgot all about that period because he's since grown them back out. But, I mean,
Cinna's described as having, only gold eyeliner.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So that's true
because he's very, like, compared to everybody else, he's very modest looking in his appearance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's restrained.
I thought he had a warmth to his character and a sweetness to it that I really liked. Again, I wish we had that moment that gave us an idea about what he thought about his situation and the state of the world. Like the something that let Katniss trust him to do what he then later does, you know. And really it just this relationship in the movie feels very much just like well, he's such a sweet guy, like how could I not like him? And you know, he did such a good job being my stylist. Right. And he's like comforting to me, which is also true. Like those things were also true as well. So I'm not trying to take away from the character. I just I really don't. It was such a quick line. It's such a quick scene. I just don't understand why they didn't include it. And it just seemed really important.
Agree. Oh, excuse me. I'm getting choked up over here.
The chariot scene with you had sent me a gif of her twirling in her dress, but I don't think you wanted to share with me the chariot scene.
I don't remember, but
so,
yeah.
So, I mean, as effects go, this was pretty cool, you know. I imagine it would be very difficult. Well, probably not that difficult, but, you know, they made their choice.
Oh my God.
All right. That was a little bit shadier than I had.
That was so shady.
You know what it is?
God damn.
A lot of my takeaway as I was watching the things that I liked, I kept thinking, I wish they had just went bigger. Like they should have just go for it. Like, why didn't you just go for it? That was a recurring thought of mine. You know, fucking just go for it. Mm-hmm. And it was as if somebody was pulling them back. Somebody was saying, "Oh, that's too far. That's too far. We don't want to go that far." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I found it like, this is just, it was weird because like I understood what they were attempting to do in terms of we're going to make things like, you know, so ostentatious as to be almost sickly and garish. But it wasn't even the kind of ostentatious that I would see at like the Met Gala for me. Like it felt very rooted in reality in a way that was like just not enough.
Yep.
So yeah, as somebody who is frequently a lot, it felt like people who designed this did not know what a lot was.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, like they thought they were already doing too much with this, and it's like no, but it wasn't enough. You weren't doing nearly enough.
And even like the costumes that they wore and the flames, there was a big part of me that felt not just here, but with her dress when she spins, like the CGI really took away from the feeling of danger and excitement about it. It felt fake and kind of took me out of the moment. And plus they're wearing these like weird sort of like shiny, they almost look like patent leather, like snakeskin or something.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what their outfits were on the chariot from the book to save my fucking life. I could not remember how they were described. I could swear
that they're basically in just like black cat suits, which I would have preferred. I felt like what they were in was bizarre because it didn't give the effect of a cinder or coal or anything like I could see where they were going, but again, it was just like not enough. I don't know. I feel like I'm nitpicking here. I'm sorry. I am like more positive on this movie overall than you are though. And I was like, I'm surprised to be in this position because I really didn't think this was going to be how this went. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is really surprising me. But yeah, and this is like when we also get sort of a look at the other victors, and it's just very, very brief. We don't get a lot of like their costumes, and that was something that I found a little bit of a bummer. Like we get a few things, but it's just barely a second, these shots, you know, of people like flying by. We have Rue, and we only see we see her for a moment, and it's only from like the chest up, so you don't really get a sense of what her costume even is.
Yeah, it's like this weird pink ballroom dress or something, right?
It was like blue.
Yeah, it was
and
definitely
it almost looked like she had overalls over it, which like maybe that's part, but again, you can't see enough to tell.
Right. I'm thinking of the interview where she's wearing this weird blue dress. It looks like a Easter dress. But yeah, the chariot, they're in like these overalls with like white work shirts on underneath, I think. Cause, I think we see, what's his name? Thresh more than we see Rue in that quick shot on the chariot.
I'm trying to get there to see. Oh yeah, here's like the first chariot. What is District 1? I guess we get a really brief, and she's wearing something that looks like a Vegas showgirl sort of headdress.
Yes.
He's got like it's just like, you know, I'm not getting what that's meant to be. He's got like a fur vest over like a sequin shirt. It looks like somebody went and just raided a closet and put random shit on them. Like this doesn't, I know that part of the thing in the book is that the costumes can be almost embarrassing sometimes, but that's usually reserved for like the shittier districts that they don't know what to do with. And I think this is meant to be District 1, and they have like luxury goods. So I think that it's supposed to be like, oh, they have gems and jewels and feathers and furs, and it is not giving luxury. It is giving spirit Halloween for me. You know what I'm saying?
And they the announcers, it's Caesar and is it Claudius? I don't know. Caesar and the other
Claudius
co-host.
Temple Smith.
Right. Yeah. They do this thing where they mention that, you know, the districts are dressed in the ways, you know, they're dressed in their district garb or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was all set to get like a close up of each one, and then they pull away from the parade and then do a close up on the announcers. And they even make a joke about District 4 and how they get it because it's like the fish district or whatever, but they don't actually show us it.
They show us, but it's through. I'm screenshotting what they show us because they're like, oh, right, I get it, the fish. And I'm like, what about this? Oh, fucking thing won't let me screenshot. It just made it like a gray background.
They show us them through it's like looking through somebody's iPhone if they were videoing, except the person is carrying it like it's a wand, almost like opera spectacles, you know? And that's the shot. It's like looking through someone's camera to the parade.
That's not what I'm looking at all.
What are you looking at? Which one are you looking at?
I'm trying to like figure out how to show you. It's at like minute 30 and 33 seconds. Right, and it's just a straight up like regular wide shot. But their costumes to me are not giving fish or anything like it. And so that's the thing that I don't know. It feels like this is just me speaking for myself as somebody who went to school initially for costume design. This should be where a designer goes all out. When you are doing stuff for a movie like this, where ostentatious is the name of the game and you're doing themes for districts for like their manufacturing, this should be where you completely let loose and do really wild shit. Mm-hmm. And all of this is so janky looking. It looks like they're homemade. And I know that the point is partially to be like, this is a gross thing that should make you like feel like what a joke this all is. But I feel like you could do that without making everything look just downright cheap, which is how it looks to me.
Right. I think that they do, or they accomplish the opposite, because what we're supposed to be getting is like this really grandiose spectacle, you know, that's just like, because that's what the people of the Capitol demand for their entertainment. And you have a crowd of 100,000 people, he says, you know, supposedly going ape shit. And then you look at what they're giving us, and I just feel like underwhelmed.
Oh yeah, he says, and then the power plant workers, and we don't even get to see them. We just cut straight to snow. And this was something so let's talk about what they did with snow.
Yeah.
Because what they did, in my opinion, makes sense because Donald Sutherland is who he is and they need to give him something to do. Mm-hmm. You don't hire Donald Sutherland and give him like 2 lines at the end of one movie and that's it.
Yep.
But what they do is have him leery of Katniss and Peeta from the start in a way that doesn't make any sense.
Just, I got to keep my eyes on them because they're on fire. Mm-hmm. What?
Yeah. It doesn't work, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It feels bizarre that he is at all concerned because the point of this all is to make a good show and distract everybody with the excitement and the drama. And they're coming in with the most drama and he's acting all bent out of shape about it. And it doesn't make any sense that he would react this way because that's what he wants. Like, you know, and nothing about their costumes here is subversive. There's nothing about this costume that says we're rebels who are trying to fight against it. Nothing about this is a threat. It's dope as hell and everybody loves it. What is your problem? Yep. And that's the way he is later when he has the conversation with Seneca about her score.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason he should be concerned about that. What she did wasn't even public. Nobody knows except for her team.
Yep. But somehow he can spot the spark in her that's going to like create a whole new revolution from the gate. His spidey senses are tingling. What does he say when he's talking to Seneca about underdogs?
Oh yeah, because Seneca's like, everyone loves an underdog. I don't. And then he says something about, I've seen the underdogs like growing our food and stuff, and you wouldn't like them either.
Yeah. If you ever saw them
Something
in real
like
life,
that.
you wouldn't like them either. Yeah. But yeah, and again, for some reason, not having Snow, with the weird blood smell, or the smell plus the weird, bleeding from his mouth situation, which was just made him in the books even creepier and more unsettling when she has to face him. I don't know. They just, it's like we said, both of us have already said how you got to give Donald Sutherland some lines, but it didn't have to be those. It didn't have to be those lines.
Yeah,
like we could have had him remarking on how spectacular the first night went, and how everybody went crazy, and he hopes that Seneca gives him a game that's worthy of the suppression that everybody made. If they wanted to make him like a little menacing towards Seneca, make it about how you better make sure we have a good games, and less about you better keep your eye on this girl. I literally just became aware of her existence 30 seconds ago. You know what I mean? Like they could have had him be concerned with something else that wasn't so hyper focused on her, because who is she at this point?
Yeah. I found that to be something that just didn't ring true. And I brought it up in the Discord, and it was me and I sorry to call you out, Sean, but it was me and Sean, I think, who kind of went back and forth about it. And his assertion was that like she is outside of their control, and they want drama that they can control. But there's nothing about this that says she's out of their control to me. Like even the score that she was given is they choose. That's literally what they control. And there has been no indication that Snow has wanted to be so hyper involved in any other part of the movie. So it just feels like really weird and out of place to me.
Right. I want to backtrack for a second, because I think I'm getting my books confused. When she gets such a high score, when is it? Is it this book, or is it the Quarter Quell when Haymitch is like, they just put a target on your back?
I think it's the Quarter Quell. I honestly don't even remember, like, because I know what you're talking about, and I can't remember exactly how that even goes.
When I was watching this, when they are going over her scores, and everybody is so excited, like they have Haymitch come in and say that it was genius, that was, absolutely genius, and gives her like a thumbs up. He's so proud of her that she did it. I was like, wait a minute, isn't he like, they just put a fucking target on your back, But I couldn't remember.
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember. Honestly,
shit. Oh well, that might be a memory from the second games, but I thought of it when I was watching this one tonight. I was like, wait, this whole scene is a very different vibe than what it was in the books, but I might be confusing that. But all right, so let's go back forward where we were. I took us back a little bit. So we have training starting.
Right.
This was kind of,
what is that laugh?
This was kind of fun, just to see the training room, and seeing all the other tributes up close, and
they give Rue a little extra business where they have her having stolen the knife.
Oh my god! Yes,
that these two guys are like fighting over, which I thought was pretty. That's not in the book, if I'm not mistaken. No, and I thought that was really fun.
It's not. It's a very cute moment. They do a couple of different things with Rue when we get further along, they have her finding Katniss and caring for Katniss after the Tracker Jacker attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it had been like a day or two, and that's I don't think that's how that goes in the book whatsoever. But
No.
but I thought that was an interesting change. But yeah, the training sequence was it was just fun to see everybody kind of like seeing what they have, and we get Peeta practicing his camouflage, and I kind of laughed at that because I was like, oh, that's really, really cool skill. Who has a full set of paints in the arena? Like,
Listen. This is something that gets made fun of a lot about the movie, is the fact that this motherfucker is working with he has got a full on MAC professional stage makeup kit somehow, and it does not make any sense that he is able to pull off what he pulls off. Like, it really is nonsense. That said, it's fun to look at, it's fun to watch, but it definitely kind of hits as like, okay, what come on, what is this? No, I get that.
When she finds him in the river, I was literally like, okay, everybody calm down. Everybody just, what? Mm-hmm. I need everybody to just hold the fuck up for just a moment, please.
Yeah, because it's very, very.
Like, in my mind, he is camouflaged, but it's because he's packed like a bunch of mud and leaves over his face, and his body, and he's submerged partly underwater. And she opens his eyes, and I just, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. This man is fully built into the ground somehow. Like, yeah, it does not, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'm so sorry, but what can you do?
Oh my God. So they have their training. She convinces him to throw this heavy weight because the careers are looking at him like he's a chicken dinner. And he does that, and
he's
everybody's
a winner.
Ma'am.
Sorry. Harvey Dangerfield collar pull.
What did you call him? Harvey Dangerfield?
Yeah, what's the guy? Rodney.
That's
the one. Yeah. Who's Harvey Danger? Is that somebody? Hold on. Let me look this up.
Are you thinking of Harvey Dent?
Dangerfield. Nope. I Googled Harvey Dangerfield, and they were like, do you mean Rodney Dangerfield? Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Google. Thank you.
You know what else they could? Google is our friend. It's not though. It's really not, y'all. It's not our friend at all. Mm-hmm. But they also they do this flashback with Peeta giving Katniss the bread. But yeah, you know where I'm going with this, right? Like, yeah,
is where you're going. The fact that he didn't burn it on purpose to give to her, but that he just happened to be throwing it away anyway.
Throwing it to feeding the pigs and tossed her a piece. Mm-hmm. There's no like consequence for his actions. He doesn't get smacked by his mom. She doesn't see that. There's no, there's nothing.
There is like a smack from his mom. It's in like, because we see this flashback a couple times before we're really told what's going on. And the second flashback, you see her follow him out, his mom, and like kind of smack his face.
Oh,
but
okay.
It is much more like, it does not feel, and I may be wrong about this, it does not feel like he burnt the bread to get it for Katniss. In the book, he sees Katniss, he goes inside, he does something, you hear her yell at him, and then he comes out, and all of a sudden he has some burnt bread, and it's very clear he did that shit on purpose. In the movie, it seems like he just happened to have burnt the bread, got yelled at, and then saw her, and threw her some once he spotted her, which is a totally different vibe.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, what was that?
I'm sorry, that was probably a giant car that was being
Wow,
an asshole. Because
I never hear noise from your side like that. That's weird.
This is what's happening these days, man.
I mean, I'm used to hearing that one guy yelling all the time in the yard, but that's a different thing.
We don't talk about him. Yeah, this. So yeah, it's not a huge thing, but it changes him. It changes who he feel like. What his motivation there was purely that he cared about Katniss and saw her and did something kind for her on purpose, getting himself in trouble and yelled at. And the way they portray it in the movie, it feels circumstantial.
Mm-hmm. And we lose, I can't remember what in the book exactly, but I know there's, because Peter mentions it in the movie that like his dad buys, food from Katniss, buys game from her. And I know we talked a lot in the book about the possibility that Peter is abused from his mother on a much more frequent basis, and that informs a lot of his behaviors. One of the reasons why he might be so good at people pleasing and having such a sort of a charming persona is because he's used to trying to manage other people's feelings, and also might be a little more in tune to conflict resolution as a survival skill. Yeah. And like we just don't get to get it really get into any of that in the movie. Like that's just not part of this Peter that we know here. So then we have them go to their final evaluations, and we don't see Peter's, but we see Katniss's. And remind me if you remember, do we know what Peter did for his first one? I know we know what he did for the Quarter Quell because he draws Rue, we find out. But do we know what he did for the first one? Is that something that we know?
I'm pretty sure that he did paint that time as well, but he did his own like camouflage paint.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we get hers, and I did enjoy it. I mean, this is a great moment.
The attitude that she cops when she bows is so satisfying.
It's very delightful. That little like half bow she does is really just like, it's chef's kiss. It's really good. I thought that because they have her miss her first shot and everybody loses interest and kind of mocks her a little bit, and then she does one like perfect shot and no one is paying attention. I thought she had really like shown her shit and done like a couple of really cool things, and they just weren't paying attention to her at all. And then she gets so frustrated that she shoots the arrow towards the pig. But it's actually pretty similar in the books. Like she does fuck up her first shot. And, that I remember. I just didn't remember how many like other like good shots she took before she realized these motherfuckers aren't paying attention to me whatsoever. I felt like in the book it was a couple of shots, and she does really well, and then she turns around expecting them to be impressed and sees that no one is paying attention to her whatsoever. Here she gets one shot and looks, and no one's paying attention, and she's like, "Fuck y'all."
Yeah,
which somehow was just even funnier to me. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this I thought that the scene overall works really well when you've just been like, the way that they dismiss her and the way that she's showing her nerves and everything at first. Yeah, it's really satisfying.
Yeah. So she shoots the arrow, it hits the pig, everybody just loses their shit. The bow, the curtsy, thank you for your consideration, delivered just was like perfect timing, perfect delivery.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. I did.
I just love later when when Haymitch is like, tell me what you said again. Like, he just can't get enough of the fact that she's like, threw some attitude. She did something nuts and then she said something nuts. And he's just like, wow, that's great. Like, it is sort of out of character for him, but there is something fun about a person, like, what's the word I want? Somebody being gleeful the way that the reader is gleeful.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because in that actual scene, everybody is so worried for her that you don't really get a chance to have that quality, that sort of like, oh my God, that was great, because none of them get to see it. Right. Really. So I don't know. I sort of had some vicarious satisfaction.
I do like that we get like an Effie like meltdown, which we got like several, we don't get as many, I don't think in the movie, but, her just being like, I can't believe what you just did. You have no idea. Your actions have consequences, not just for you, but for all of, Yeah. And then like Hamish tells her to like untighten her corset and have a drink or some shit like
Loosen
that.
Your corset and have a drink. Yeah. I also love when she's on the train and she does that is mahogany.
Oh, line. Yes.
The indignation is so genuine.
Yeah, that is very, very good. I'm glad you remembered to call that out. That's good stuff.
This is why I got Effie on my fucking test. You want to tell everybody what you got? By the way, now that I brought it up.
No, not particularly.
Wow,
guys, I took the test. I took the Hunger Games. I took one of them. I took the one that Cam sent me, and I got Primrose. Which I have to say I'm a little delighted by. I was very surprised. I didn't think that that's who I would get at all. I wasn't even considering her as an option, quite frankly. I liked your guess that I got Buttercup. That would be the only thing I think would be better than getting Prim is getting fucking Buttercup. Who they have as a black and white cat, by the way.
Right. What was that about? You couldn't get an orange cat?
Like, why would we? I don't know what to say about that. It's just something I had to mention, so there it is.
But yeah, I found that also quite bizarre. I don't understand. Look, there are just times where I'm like, did you even try? Come on, you guys. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too hard on them. I don't feel like my expectations are out of line, but I also got Effie Trinket on a quiz. So, maybe they
do with
are.
that what
maybe
you will.
I'm the problem. I'm the problem. It's me.
My God, you share a memory of like something about like this astrology meme, and you're just like, I've never felt so called out. It was like the two cartoons with the Libra and the Capricorn.
Yes, you guys. One of them, the Libra one, is about like being beaten up by somebody labeled people pleasing. And in the background, the people watching are just like unanswered text messages and shit like that. And then the Capricorn one, you're getting beaten up by like your impossible standards. And yeah, it's, oh man. Very, got personal real quick.
I tried to click the link because you had included a link to the full collection, but it was a dead link. So, because I wanted to see what mine were. Yeah, I was bummed out. So we go from everybody celebrating, Katniss's score to Seneca and Snow having their confrontation in the Rose Garden. And this is Snow just being, again, like, I knew I was right to have my eye on her because I'm being, like, he doesn't say any of this, but, the feeling is like, aha,
Yeah.
And, he's basically, he's asked Seneca, do you know why we have a winner? Seneca is just like, I don't know. What do you mean? You're a head game maker. You've been in this world and in this very specific part of this world. Why are you, what? What?
they're not supposed to be smart, I guess. Capital people.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess. This is yeah. So he's like basically threatening, Seneca to make sure that he keeps this spark. He actually says it too. Too much of a spark.
Yeah. A spark is fine as long as it's contained. So what are you saying? Contain it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because yeah, a little too on the nose, but what can you do? And I guess if I want to be sort of fair, at this point, she has shot an arrow in the direction of Capitol people. Now, you have said that this is actually what the people would want to see. This is who you want on your reality TV show. Mm-hmm. I can concede that just the idea of a lesser person, especially someone as low as being from District 12, even having the thought occur to them to lift the arrow and aim it at them is a problem. Even though she clearly wasn't aiming it at anybody's head, that someone of that station, it should never occur to them as an option to even aim up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, do you get what I'm trying to say? So, like,
yes, I do.
So, I guess if I wanted to be super, super generous, I would say, all right, maybe Snow is recognizing the danger and just that her mind would go there when she should be so downtrodden that the thought never even occurs to her. Mm-hmm. And that's probably about as generous as I can be with what they're doing with Snow here.
Yeah, it's the thing for me is that, and again, this is like, a movie thing. Snow would never know about this. I just don't believe that he would ever be like, you gave her a 12, why? And then get told about the why that, like all of this is suggesting that he is so intimately involved with everything in a very supervillainy sort of way instead of like a bureaucracy of government sort of way.
Right.
For me, it makes so much more sense that like he doesn't notice Katniss until she starts to eat those berries. She is not of importance. She is nobody. She's from 12, which is another strike against her because 12 never matters. And, so that there's just a whole lot of him not seeing her as anything special in particular. And the idea that he's just like, somebody from 12 got what score? Why? And then gets mad that they gave her that. Like, it's it just all feels wrong.
Let me ask you, and we wouldn't know this because it wouldn't be in the book because it wouldn't be from her POV, but what did you think of the riot that they have happen in 11 after Rue dies?
It was an interesting choice. I didn't remember this. And it felt sort of like they were just sort of fast tracking things. I don't remember if there is a mention in the books that there was a riot that we have like forgotten about, because this feels like vaguely familiar story wise, but I can't tell if that is me remembering things from the second book or what. So that's why I was sort of like mostly okay with it, but I was sort of like, that's happening already. Oh,
that I had a very similar thing. I don't have a strong opinion on like whether it was like right or wrong. A thing happened in my brain where I was like, cause I couldn't remember either. And I was like, oh, am I confusing the books again? Like maybe like I'm confusing something that I think happened in the second book or the third book, but really it was introduced in the first book and my timeline got all jacked up. But I was thinking when we do go to what is Rue's district? 11. In the book, in the second book, when they get there, they tell us how like heavily policed it is. But see, Rue had told us how heavily policed it was in book 1.
Right.
So at first I was like, oh, well, maybe that's why it was so like, the peacekeepers were on their ass when they got there in book 2 because they had this riot in book 1 that I just fucking forgot about. Right. But then I thought, well, we know the sponsors or the people of 11 sent the bread to Katniss, which isn't in the movie, I don't think, unless I missed that part.
Oh, you're right. That isn't in the movie.
So
I wonder why they didn't do that.
Well, because I think they did the riot instead. I don't, and I could be wrong. You guys know how my brain can get. So maybe we are misremembering it, but I don't know. I thought that like the movie was swapping out the emotions, like, and instead of having them pay their respects to Rue by dealing with their pain of her loss by sending this gift to Katniss, they expressed it in this rage of a riot.
Right. I think you're right. I think they did just swap it out. And I'm like, I don't even know if that was a good or bad call.
Exactly.
I'm curious if we're right about this, but I think you're right.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily, it's not one of my gripes with the movie. I just put it that way. But it was definitely interesting to me. I also thought that it was interesting that they made sure that Rue's district was integrated.
Yeah. I noticed that as well. I did not remember that is how they played it.
And this is me, because I'm always going to be black because that's just what I am. They turned the hoses on them people. Yeah. That one I did notice this time, because that is not something that I remember being mentioned ever. Yeah. But they made sure it was some white people getting wet.
I shouldn't laugh, but like, it really is sort of like, all right. Yeah. There it is. We're not angry. We're just disappointed.
All right. So
RoShawn's like, I'm a little angry.
So we are finally, oh my God, we have like not even gotten to like the interviews and shit yet.
Yeah, we got to speed shit up a little bit here for sure. But, all right. So let's talk about the interviews.
Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't expecting that pause.
I thought that you were going to pick it up because you had just mentioned them. So I thought you'd be like, yeah, all right.
Nope.
I brought it up because I was thinking of something.
Nope.
My goodness.
Nope. That was just me being like, look at the time. My God, it's been an hour and 20 minutes and we haven't even gotten to the interview.
Oh my God.
I wasn't prepared to follow up in any way.
So the interviews are mostly pretty similar to the book, except for Rue's, like, we don't get her being like, if you want to kill me, you'll have to catch me first, which was a little bit of a shame that we lost that.
Yeah, and it's one line. We could have got that. One line.
And Katniss is much more like awkward and weird in her interview.
Right. Yeah, because she thinks, and it's funny too, because in the book, she thinks she is absolutely killing the interview.
Yeah.
And then we find out that, maybe it wasn't as great as she thought. So I was like, well, maybe the book is showing us what it looked like to everybody else and not what it felt like for her when she was doing it. So I was like,
Right.
well, I guess that's okay.
I think they really wanted to get across to us, because again, since we're not in her head, this is hard to do, how difficult it is for her to talk to people that she doesn't know well. Like how opening up in the way that you would have to for this kind of production is just really, really hard for her. And so having her sort of stumble over things is meant to get that across. And, it mostly works.
It works really well in contrast to Peeta, who then comes out and is like so comfortable and relaxed and bantering and all that jazz. That part works really, really well. We get to see a little bit of the other people's interviews, which I don't recall like necessarily getting in the books, or if I even remember it. But yeah, we get to see them kind of waiting their turns with dread, and then seeing them get on stage and light up. And I kind of appreciated that too, because when they're in the hallway, everybody is just so pensive and just like tight. And then you see them talking to Caesar, and everybody is grinning and is really just doing it. And then there's this one girl who I'm certain is supposed to be Foxface, but they never actually say that in the movie, so I don't know which one is supposed to be her. But I feel like it's the one with the red hair.
Yes.
Okay.
The one that's never given an actual name in the movie either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's just girl from District blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this, the interview thing, what I really enjoy about, and we didn't really talk about this when we got to this point in the book, but something that I think is really interesting that Suzanne Collins, like, kind of, she doesn't dwell on it too much, but she does bring it up a couple of times, is the fact that even though this is like a horrific thing that you're being put through as a, what do you call it? As a
tribute?
Tribute. Yes. Thank you. And even though you know that this is like deeply immoral and unfair, there are a couple points where Katniss is like getting swept up in things in a way that she isn't expecting. And this point where people are coming out and they're managing to like light up and really like play the crowd is, I'm not sure if they're purposely sort of pointing this out or if it's just supposed to be these people know how to play the game better than her. But I just really like that being something that we get to see, because I feel like this is the thing about fame, is that it's like, for a lot of people, it's so toxic and they know that. And yet the high, of like everybody just cheering and loving you is really, really difficult to give up. And I just sort of enjoy the fact that like, we see everybody being terrified and upset and whatever, but also there's this edge of like, oh, but the crowd loves me. You know what I mean? Not to say that that overrides their fear or anything, but just that it's a kind of irresistible thing, a force that I can understand as somebody who loves attention, how like intoxicating that would be.
Right. I think that's a really good point. And also it appears like, even though the interviews section is quick, it seems like the longer the person is on stage, the more sort of like relaxed and into it they get as they're feeding off of the audience, because it doesn't, I imagine, I'm not one for attention, but I imagine that if that's something that a person feeds off on, if you're getting it in that, like that amount and that immediacy, that you're going to respond to it, even if like your better part of your brain knows that this is all bullshit and it's all immoral. Like, it's like an external stimulus. You can't really, like, you can't deny it. Like you said, like it's like a force.
Yeah, I could see how it's like, even though for some people the like fame is ruining their lives, they also like have trouble giving it up, because that kind of validation and the feelings of possibility and all of that, it's just got to be really
a heady mix.
A heady mix indeed.
So then we have Peter's interview, and we get him dropping the bomb. It was so funny, too, as I was watching the interview, and I'm like, well, it's really lucky that Caesar asked that question, isn't it? Because what if he hadn't asked that question, and how was Peter going to introduce this fucking star-crossed lover spit?
Is that not how they did it in the book?
No, this is exactly how they did it in the book. It just didn't occur to me at the time.
Oh, I got you.
It wasn't.
I wonder. This is pure headcanon, for the record, but you know how on like Real Talk shows they give them like, oh, I have a funny story about this. Ask me about this.
Oh yeah. I thought the same thing.
You know,
maybe I did. I 100% thought
like,
the same thing.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, that's probably what happened too. But but yeah, so then we get like the bomb drop, and it goes the same way it goes in the book, and it's not a surprise. But then we get Katniss's reaction to it, which I thought was,
it feels so out of proportion in the movie. Like she just seems so crazy the way that she reacts. In the book, you can understand why she's sort of like, what the fuck is he playing at? Especially after he's insisted on training separately from her.
Yep.
But in the movie, I feel like she just looks like a fucking lunatic.
And everybody is looking at her like, you are a fucking lunatic. And this is again one of those points where it just like it's just unfortunate, you know. It does a sort of a disservice to the story that we don't know more about what is going on in Katniss's brain, because that's the whole book, is what's going on in her head. And trying to build a story without that part of it is a difficult task. And they struggled with that, I think, you know. It's as difficult, you know, when we talk about, like, you know, we're covering Song of Ice and Fire, and they ran into some of the same difficulties where you're taking a source material that's happening inside of different people's brains and trying to make that something that you can watch. So Game of Thrones, they dealt with it by having like a ton of, what is that word, exposition, like just like almost too much of it. And this actually goes in an opposite direction, where they're just like, we're just not going to talk about it.
Yeah, that's true.
We're just not going to give you any. We're just not going to give you any.
Yeah, I never really thought of it that way, but that's true. They really do seem to think that like the info dump in text at the beginning of the movie is just going to do all the heavy lifting in that regard.
It's going to carry you all the way through.
Yeah. And I don't know, guys. I don't know about that. Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah, so I'm very curious how they handle this in the following movies, if they course correct or if it just stays like this. And we have them on the roof, the scene we talked about earlier, much shorter than we get in the book, but we have Peter saying probably the most important part, which is the idea that he just doesn't want to be changed. And I'll tell you what, this scene and him saying he just wants to be himself, he doesn't want them to change him, hits so different when you get to the end of the book and you find out what happens to him.
Yeah, it does.
It hits different.
Yeah, it's a lot grimmer.
Yeah.
The whole thing, like, the only thing, again, and this is because I think they're trying to make her more likable, but I was a little bit bummed because, like, in that conversation with Katniss in the book, when he says this and is like, do you get what I mean? She straight up is like, no, what do you mean? Who cares? Like, that she literally says, look, okay, fine, but not to be shitty, but Peeta, who cares? And he gets mad at her for not getting it. And while I do understand not going with that, I miss Katniss, the Katniss that is unlikable. You know what I mean? I miss the Katniss that is really difficult in a way that's like sometimes hard for you to relate to as a reader because you're just like, girl, can you just be cool for like a second? Nope.
Agreed.
Nope. It's going to be the same every time.
She's a very, very complicated and conflicted person, and you just don't get a lot of that in this. You just don't. Yeah, it's unfortunate. So then it's finally time for them to go to the arena, and we get one nice little goodbye with Senna, and then we get to see the cornucopia, which I had been really excited to see.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not what I was expecting. It is just
this cornucopia is so weird.
Why are they doing this? Why?
Style. Fashion.
It's just like an ugly, like gray, black tin can situation.
Mm-hmm.
In the shape of a horn. Barely. Looks like the back half of a whale.
Yeah, it's not really like cornucopia shaped. It's like it's like it looks like if somebody had you know what it made me think of? You know those ice creams that you get in the cone, but you buy them out of like the freezer section? You know how what are they called? The cornettos?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And they have the little bit of chocolate at the bottom of the cone. Somebody out there listening knows exactly.
They're called something different that I get. But yeah, they have like the little bit of chocolate at the bottom. Are they in the vanilla ice cream with like a chocolate casing? And sometimes peanuts on top?
Yes. Yes.
Things.
This, for me, looks like if you had the wrapper for one of those and had just crumpled it to throw it in the trash. Because it's like this weird sort of textured, like, but it's like straight edges, you know? It's just strange, y'all. I don't really
looked
like
me,
this design.
And you live in Texas, so you may have seen these things. You know those metal sheds that you can buy and prop up yourself in your backyard?
Yes.
It looked like half of one of those in the front. And then it just kind of went back, like had more depth to it than they would have in real life. And then just tapered off. It looked like the metal barn of like my great uncle's house.
I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it is.
It looked like just slapped together. Like people took 4 pieces of tin and just hammered them together and then beat the shit out the back end till it flattened a little bit.
See, this is what I'm talking about with everything looking like cheap, right? Mm-hmm. Even Katniss's dress. I know that I've beaten this horse already.
That red dress is a mess.
But that red dress is so fucking janky.
Mm-hmm.
We should have been getting opulence again. Like, that's the point, I thought.
Yep.
And just, it's absolutely missing. MIA. I do not understand how they fumbled this so bad.
It's like a bridesmaid's dress that you make somebody join your party that you don't even like that much. But you know that they won't outshine you on your big day. That's what it looked like. It looked like a cheap prom dress that, you know, it looked cheap, quite frankly. It's just what I'm saying.
It looked really cheap. It looked really cheap.
Oh,
I remain. What?
I just got distracted by like a view of people in the Capitol, and I just got disgusted all over again at how like regular everybody looks.
You guys, I'm so sorry. This isn't meant to be just like a fucking hate fest.
It's
was
not,
really
though.
hoping that you liked the movie more than I did, and it does not seem like that's the case.
I did not like it more than you did, but I didn't hate it. I know it sounds like I did, but honestly, you guys, I didn't hate it. I didn't applaud when it was over because I was out of my misery. Like, it wasn't bad like that. It's just that they made a lot of choices that I didn't quite, get. And, I was disappointed at some things that were, cut out. But it wasn't like all terrible. There were some really, really touching moments. I'm watching the cornucopia bloodbath now, and they were really made sure that the violence was like implied, but real fast. Like they did not lean into it at all. We understand that, like, and we're told explicitly that, like, I think 11 or 12 people died the first 8 hours. But the cornucopia bloodbath is really muted down. But again, maybe going for a PG rating. So you do what you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it was sort of an interesting, and this is kind of the thing I think I said in the beginning of our coverage, was that the movies needed to be R. The new movies needed to be R, and they needed to cast people who looked a lot younger. And Owen suggested that we cover something that people compare to Hunger Games a lot, which is Battle Royale. Have you watched that movie?
That sounds very, very familiar, and it does sound like something I've seen, but I don't know for sure. It could just be one of those things that I picked up through osmosis over the years.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. It's another movie about like a government mandated fight to the death with children, but it's a really different take.
It's with children? Oh, no, I haven't seen it then. No, I definitely haven't seen it.
Okay. I can't remember if it's Japanese or, let me look up the year it was made too. But, I don't think the comparison is really like valid because they are going for a completely different message from each other. But the one thing that I think Battle Royale does that Hunger Games shied away from too much is the real bleakness of this being fucking kids and what they are being forced to do to each other and how differently people react because some kids are like into it in a sick way and others just want nothing to fucking do with this and why am I here, Japanese, yeah. So I don't know, I'm kind of interested. I think I would like to cover this with you. I'm trying to see where you can watch it. It's on Tubi. Do you have Tubi? Who's got
I
Tubi?
think everybody's got Tubi. It's free. All you got to do is have some type of smart TV streaming situation.
Is it free? Okay. All right. Well, we might do this after, we're done with the whole thing. But it's like I said, a really, really different tone and message. But that is something that I feel like they really nailed in a way that's really uncomfortable to watch sometimes. And I wish they had done with this movie.
Yeah, I'm down.
Maybe they'll redo Hunger Games at some point and actually give us opulence and violence.
Oh, wouldn't that be something?
I would be so down. I really would.
Well, I mean, they just did what do you call it? Is it like a pseudo prequel or a real prequel?
It's a real prequel.
And
what would a pseudo prequel even be?
Like, I don't really know. Like, I think I was trying to make a distinction where it's like it's a pre-story, but not really about any of the people that you already know, is what I was kind of going for. So, like, not necessarily a prequel, like, what was Katniss's life like before the Hunger Games?
No.
Or like, what was it like for Katniss's mom when she was growing up as a prequel? But more like, this is just the before times of the movie that you're familiar with.
It's, I told you who it's about, right?
You did, and I have already forgotten.
I can't tell if I should tell you or leave it.
Meh. I forgot about it, so just leave it in case you decide we're going
Okay.
to read it or cover it or whatever, I guess.
We're definitely going to cover it. I'll just say that right now because just too many people have asked. So we're definitely doing it.
Is there a book? Oh, there's
yes.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the movie. So I've read the book. I haven't seen the movie. So very, very curious about it because the book hits really kind of annoying sometimes because there's a lot of music in it. And when I listen to the audiobook, that man does not sing the music the way that she sings the music in the original trilogy, which makes her dialogue and her narration so good. The singing just brings a lot of emotion to it. And I find it wild. The guy who does the narration for the newest book is, what's his face? Fontaine that played Greg in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the original Greg.
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He's a singer. Why wouldn't you have him sing? What are you doing? But he doesn't. He just narrates it and then reads the words for the songs with no music.
That costs extra, ma'am.
What a waste.
They didn't want to pay those rates.
Disgusted. And just fucking hire a nobody. Why are you going to hire a singer for a music heavy story and then not have him sing? What are you thinking? Ugh.
You know what that's like? That's like when they had Michael Jackson on The Simpsons and they had him sing, but it wasn't really him singing.
Wait, who is this?
Michael Jackson.
When was he? Wait, he was lip syncing?
Michael Jackson did a voice on The Simpsons. But it's the Lisa, It's Your Birthday episode where Homer goes to the mental hospital, gets committed.
Yeah. But that's not really Michael Jackson though, is it?
That's really Michael Jackson.
Oh my God.
Oh, you didn't know that?
They don't have him sing?
They don't credit him. He doesn't get a Michael Jackson credit. They use a fake name in the episode, but that's really him doing the dialogue. But when it's time to sing, they brought in a Michael Jackson impersonator because Michael Jackson wasn't singing for that money.
That is so weird. Just say it was like 13 seconds of music. Go ahead, do it. Shut up. That's weird. All right, sure, whatever.
And the money thing is
weird.
The money thing is a joke. I mean, it's probably serious, but it's a joke that they say on the commentary that they couldn't afford to have him actually sing the song, so they had to bring an impersonator in. It might have been much more complicated than that with like record contracts and shit like that. It might have been more complicated than just they couldn't afford to pay him for it. But that's what they say when they talk about it in the episode commentary. But anywho,
well, girl, we have got to pick it up.
We really do. All right. So first things first, she gets to the arena, and this is one of the times when I said at the beginning, there's only like one or two times where I was just like, what the fuck? She finds water immediately.
Yeah, they don't have that whole thing. Look,
so
watching her thirst to death would be very boring.
I get it. They could have fast tracked it. They could have made it a montage. Also,
that's true.
The sponsor gifts come with notes.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
Because I think it makes sense. In the book, you get her internal like understanding of what it is that Haymitch is trying to tell her with the gifts, and that can't be done. And they also don't do the thing where she gets some drug to make Peter fall asleep. They just have her wait for him to fall asleep.
Yep.
Which, again, it sort of takes some of the edge of Haymitch off. Because the fact that they are both sort of like cutthroat in the way they think is lost there.
Yep.
But what can you do?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it makes sense.
I like what they did with the fire and then having us have it confirmed, because Katniss in the book suspects that, I think she says something like, it must be getting pretty boring. It's been too long since somebody died. So this is what they're doing. So then they have in the movie, that's literally what's happening. They're, corralling her like she's just cattle and making sure she ends up. But they go a step further in the movie where they are just, not only are they directing her back towards the action, but they are forcing her right into the path of the careers, which happens in the book, but she doesn't get spotted in the book, the way she does here. Where she just like splashes right into where they're fucking standing, and they're like, "Oh shit, there she is!" But this was a whole cool sequence, her dodging the fire and the fireballs coming and everything. That was pretty cool to see on screen.
Something else that I liked was getting to see Haymitch looking at her with her burn, and then going off and glad handing people in order to get her a sponsor. It's a really brief scene, in my opinion, a little too brief. Like, I wouldn't have minded more of that.
If we got to hear a little bit, would have been kind of cool.
There's also a point where Haymitch is looking over at some Capitol people who have bought their kids like a fake sword to play Hunger Games.
Oh,
Did right.
I meant to mention it. I'm glad you brought it up. That look on his face. I think that's
something that like Katniss mentions in the book, like, but having it done the way they do with him being the one to spot it, I did really like.
Oh, I don't remember that from the book, so that's even better.
I'm pretty sure that when she's like pulling up in the train, she sees a kid, like, when they first get there, but I may be misremembering that.
Right.
But yeah.
So the careers chase her. She goes up the tree, a little bit different than it is in the book, and she just sort of camps out in the tree while they are camped out underneath at Peeta's suggestion to just wait her out because Kato is trying to climb the tree and he fucking can't because he's too fucking big. And then we get Rue introduced, in the tree, next to her, and she gives her the heads up about the wasp nest, and we get that whole thing. I
want to mention really quick, Kato. I was going nuts, and all of a sudden it came to me. He is Bjorn from Vikings, Ragnar's son.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
He is.
Because I was just like, he looks so familiar, and it's just that he's like a lot younger. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
It's crazy how many people are in here.
Yeah.
So they do the wasp, and her hallucination of Peeta was a little bit of a disappointment because what she sees in the book is so fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
But
they have her hallucinate what Caesar Flickerman says to the audience, which makes no
sense. How
does
she know what he says to the audience?
Yeah, like, it's nonsense. She had fucking like pits lined with orange bubbles that are humming, butterflies explode, like none of that. Yeah,
nope,
real bummer.
We get like she's got like double vision or triple vision, I guess, because there's 3 Peetas. And then she has a weird hallucination. It's all about the mines.
Yes.
That's what they
like
do
her house
instead.
Exploding.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess. And then we get some time with her in her in a tree, and then I think she sees Rue. And the next morning they do drop the thing. She hallucinates. Haymitch sends her medicine for her burn.
Right.
And
when she wakes up, Rue has already applied like those leaves to her wounds and gotten her the quiver of arrows to go with the bow and like put it next to her.
Right. I'm a little bit behind you. She's trying to catch up. I went backwards by mistake. And then they come up with their plan, right? That we don't really get Rue talking at all about home.
No.
Which I thought was a missed opportunity. Because that was one of the first inclinations that Katniss gets about what life is like in other districts, like from someone, and gets has a moment of being like, well, shit, things are bad in 12, but I guess they could be worse, and I should be sort of like grateful that I'm able to get away with the things that I get away with, because Katniss is just breaking the law every fucking day, you know, and it's like not a big deal. She's selling like illegal shit to peacekeepers, to cops, and Rue's experience is so different from hers. And that's just like left out.
We didn't even talk about really like Gale scaring that deer away on purpose, which felt wildly out of character.
Like,
the whole, like,
he knows
who are you selling it to today? I'm like, you're not going to fucking like just chop it up and bring it home? Like, what do you, food is food.
Like, it's food, whatever. Dude. These are people who are supposed to be starving. And you scare a fucking deer away. Like, it just takes away some of like the desperation and urgency with which they are living under in 12, and really just dilutes that so much. So her and Rue come up with the plan. They're going to destroy the camp and the supplies of the careers to sort of level the playing field. We have the moment with the Mockingjays, which I thought was, you know, quite sweet. We get a scene after Rue is killed. I don't want to like rush to that, but it's you know, Katniss goes to destroy the camp. They all run off after Rue lights the fires. They leave one kid to guard. Katniss does the thing with the arrows and
the apples.
The apples, thank you. Then detonates everything. You know, they don't do the whole thing about her hearing either. We get like a few moments of her being like, you know, woo, like that weird ringing in her ear. But that's pretty much it. We don't have her struggling through the rest of the movie with like loss of hearing in the one ear. Yeah. And they also let Peter keep his leg. So I guess.
Oh, right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
But we get a scene with Haymitch talking to Seneca, trying to sell the Lovebird angle. And this was a really interesting thing to include. What did you think about this?
It just struck me again as foolish, because there's no way a game maker doesn't see the young love opportunity. There's just the only reason that they have to include this is because they have made Snow eyeball Katniss so specifically that him not just killing her now has turned into a question why you wouldn't do that. But they could have just not had Snow get involved the way that they did. And
also, they included this riot, which is what is making the pressure to get rid of her, because now Rue has died and there's been this uprising in response to Katniss's treatment of her. And now, you know, now it's like we got to do something. And this is Haymitch talking Seneca out of just getting rid of her, basically out of the game. Yeah. Which you wouldn't have to do if you didn't invent this riot. But you need to give Snow more and more reasons to be like, got to get this girl.
Yeah. Yep. And I feel like in the book, she says something about how they are trying to hide that Rue was covered in flowers or something from the viewers, but they definitely saw her singing to Rue as she died. I don't think that they saw her cover Rue's body in flowers. So I guess it doesn't really change them rioting the way that they do. But yeah, they're adding a lot of tension right out of the gate with Katniss that feels much more main character YA than the books feel. The books feel like Katniss is not that special in a way that's sort of like refreshing to me. And that she gets swept up in something that she didn't really want to be involved in. This rebellion isn't even something that she wants at first. You know, she's just sort of like, I just want to live. I just want to have enough food. I just want to be left alone. And I just wanted to survive the games. And that's the only thing we were doing with those berries. But they really make it like she's a standout from the start in a way that's like a little boring, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it's definitely like I appreciate you mentioning that it's like leaning more into the sort of YA tropes than the book does, which was what was so refreshing about the book, because I went in expecting it to be very similar along a lot of major themes. Well, maybe not the themes, but the characterizations I thought would be very similar to some other things. And what they ended up doing with Katniss in the book was so different than what I was expecting opening them up for the first time, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
oh, here's a girl that I'm not even sure I like. I'm not even sure I'm supposed to like her, or if it even matters that I like her. And, you know, she's not destined in the way a lot of these characters, we find out that this was going to be their lot in life no matter what, because they had, you know, they were born under these whatever circumstances that was going to make their life extraordinary regardless. She's just like a poor kid from a poor place that really is just trying to get by every day.
A poor girl from a poor family. I'm so sorry.
So after the talk with Haymitch, they announced that there's going to be 2 victors. That sends her on a mad dash hunting for Peeta. She literally stumbles across him at the river.
Almost steps on his face.
Yeah. Takes him back to the cave. The whole cave sequence is fairly short, considering how long it goes on in the book. You mentioned already earlier that she does not have to go and get poison to put him to sleep. We do get her kissing Peeta in the cave, and then a cutaway to Gale watching at home.
Yeah. That's like one of the only cutaways to home. Like there's one, I think, of her mother watching, but we get a lot more of Seneca Crane than we do like family and friends. But
well, I mean, the way this is introduced in the movie, it doesn't feel like Katniss has any real friends or family, you know, or connections to home. They don't really do any of that, you know. We see her moving through the Hob, kind of like silent, not really interacting with anybody, you know, when she goes up to who we think might be Greasy Say, but, you know, it doesn't seem like they've even really talked before, you know. It just, there's no like familiarity between them. There's no warmth between them. I don't know, guys. I don't know.
Yeah. This is that was also something that I think I said was like the seam and 12 didn't feel like a real place to me. It really felt movie set like. And there's this thing that they do in the opening when she's like walking through to get to the fence to go into the woods, and it's a lot of like shaky cam, which was a real thing in the like early 2000s because Jason Bourne made it very popular, I guess. There's so much stuff I watch now that they have shaky cam, and I'm like, God, why did we like this? But it all feels like very tightly edited vignettes that were filmed in totally different places with totally different people on different days. Like it's meant to be scenes that she's walking past but it does not feel like that to me at all. This just doesn't feel like a real place. It feels like a set. And I just kept having that, even with the like tributes, like on their chariots. That place doesn't feel real at all. It feels completely computer generated. There's nothing about it that's like got texture to me, you know. Just so much of the movie is like that. It feels so flat and shiny, like the Star Wars prequels. Same kind of energy to them, you know.
There's just a lack of heart, in my opinion, in this movie. Really, when you get down to it, you know, it doesn't feel like there's any real heart happening. It doesn't feel like there's. I mean, I know that there are stakes. I'm watching kids die, but it doesn't feel. I don't know. It doesn't feel as like the oppression in the book is just leaps off the page, you know. You feel sort of like I felt anyway while I was reading it, like I was being caged myself in a weird way. You know, I felt like I felt trapped while I was reading it. Like, you know, and it just didn't come across for me in the movie. And I think you may have nailed a bit of the problem for me, is that a lot of this does just feel like it's a set piece. You know, it doesn't feel like home. This doesn't feel like a dangerous, you know, I mean, it's dangerous. I see it's dangerous. I see like the mutts, and I see like the kids killing each other. Like I see it, but it doesn't feel like it, you know?
Yep.
Even this moment with them in the cave, which is okay, but there's so much more emotion happening on the page when they're spending this time together in the cave, you know, that you really do believe for a second when she kisses him that she means it in this moment. Like, oh, this really could be something. What's happening now? What's this? Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know, guys. It just, it's difficult because the book was really just that good in a lot of ways that you know.
Some of it is definitely like, this is your fault, Suzanne. You got my expectations too high with this amazing book.
So,
but
she,
so let's just jump ahead, because so much of this is like beat for beat. Like the only thing that is really very different is that she kills Kato after the mutt attack way sooner. It goes on for quite a while in the book, and
he ends up like begging them to put him out of his misery in the book, I think.
He begs in this, but it's filmed in such a way that it's hard to hear that that's what he's saying.
Oh, okay.
So it's just not, it doesn't have the same effect because it hasn't gone on long enough for the fact that he's begging to really make a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get it. That's why I missed it.
Yeah.
I know we're speeding through and I don't want to stop us, but when does she get the berries?
She finds PETA picking them and almost eating them, and that's when Foxface dies.
All right. I have watched this movie 3 times and I keep missing that one scene. I don't understand how
3 times. Damn. But it's after they heal up PETA's leg and go out into the woods, and PETA's like, okay, I'll take the bow, which I always do like that joke.
All right. I kept missing it. Well, like not really 3 times, like one, and then like the second time today, but in 2 parts.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So they get the announcement that instead of 2 victors, there's only going to be 1. And this is when we have the moment where they decide that they would rather just eat the berries than play their game. And the announcer comes in and tells them to wait, to stop, and announces them as winners of the games. And Hovercraft comes to take them away. And then it like cuts. Does it cut right to Seneca Crane being escorted into that room, or do we may go somewhere else first?
I'm trying to find my spot here because I think it's like right from there. I'm trying to get to it because it is sort of abrupt from, because him getting let in there. I forgot about this. No, she gets Haymitch. Yeah.
And he starts to warn her about how she has to be really careful that they're going to be pissed off at her for what she did. And she's like not getting how serious it is. And he says, this is serious and not just for you, which I thought was interesting because there's like no real follow up for Haymitch's statement. But Haymitch says, not just for you. And then it cuts to Seneca Crane. and they escort him into this room, lock him in there. And then there's just a giant glass bowl filled with the poison berries.
I did kind of enjoy that. The drama. And I love the fact that like nobody necessarily knows that's what's happening here. So the drama is purely for Snow's personal enjoyment. Like, I do kind of love that.
I just am really curious.
Very
like
messy bitch.
How they got him eating those berries. Did somebody have to come pull a gun on him, or did he just get the memo and he understands and he just eats them and puts himself out of his misery? Like, you know.
I'm going to go ahead and say they lock him into a room with no escape and no other food.
And
what are you going to eat?
Oh, that's diabolical.
Yeah.
Make somebody start to starve until they eat poison, so they knowingly eat poison berries.
Right. That's just my take. You know, I did get Snow on that quiz, like as a second. So I feel like
that is terrifying. Effie and Snow.
Yeah.
Glad we're friends.
I'm a real capital bitch. I can't help it. I love aesthetic. I love comfort. I love luxury. I am what I am. I will say though, like him being like, oh, this is going to impact a lot of people, not just you. And then cutting to Seneca Crane, who we do not care about, is kind of funny. Like you guys have to keep in mind what you should make the stakes and what you shouldn't. And the dude who runs the games is not what you should be doing, but okay.
And we have the final interview with Caesar, and then ceremony where Snow crowns them as victors, and takes a little peek at her pen, and is just like somehow understands immediately how dangerous it is. This pen. What is that? Girl, I don't know. He doesn't crown PETA, and also doesn't seem to congratulate PETA. Which I just thought was funny.
I don't understand the pin thing. It's just to draw attention to it for the next movie. I get it. But you could have just had a Madge character, give it to her, make us understand that they are friends and it matters. And we would have remembered the pin as its own thing without Snow acting like it's some sort of sinister like rebel signal that already exists.
Yep. It's already.
It doesn't make any sense.
Symbol.
It doesn't make any sense, you guys. It just doesn't. I am not a screenwriter. So I say all of this acknowledging that I'm a fucking nobody who knows nothing. But some of this shit just feels so obvious to me that I don't understand how you do this as a job and you don't think about the fact that that doesn't work. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I feel like I'm in no position because, you know, I want to be
your entire job.
I just I would like it to make just a little bit more sense. We even get Snow like watching the last scene of the movie is, you know, so they're home and they're having their like victory tour, which I don't believe, like the book just ends with them on the train, I think, going home, but they're home.
Yeah.
We have a moment where she's looking out into the crowd and she sees Gale, who has Prim on his shoulders, and she gives gives Gale, they exchange a look, and then PETA grabs her hand at that same moment. PETA sees her and Gale, and then grabs her hand and raises it up high, and then we cut to Snow watching them because he's obsessed. Clearly, he's obsessed with her. That's really what's happening here. That answers all of our questions. And kind of glowering at the screen and then like walking slowly up the stairs with his like clearly plotting on what to do about this Katniss Everdeen problem that he has now. And that's how the movie ends.
Yeah, him just let me go and brood in my my evil cave, whatever that may be. Yeah, it's sort of there's a thing that you'll find out in the prequel that one could retcon as kind of explaining Snow's obsession with Katniss.
Oh dear.
But the book wasn't written yet, and it's not really like, it's not real. You know, it's a retcon. One could argue that when Suzanne wrote this, she already knew what this was for this character, and she just hadn't written the book yet. I am tempted to call bullshit on that, because I think they did what they did for the movie and changed it up, and that gave her the idea for writing the book, I would argue. Because she's just not as obsessed with Katniss in the books right away as he is in the movies. But I just wanted to mention that because I'm sure a lot of people out there are thinking about it. Look, I'm just going to tell you straight up, the prequel is about Snow.
Oh, that's right. Once you started talking about that, I was like, my memory started to get jogged a little bit, and I was like, oh, I think it's about him. Okay.
Yeah. So, and there's like a weird plot with him that sort of contextualizes it a little bit, but like I said, I don't really think that has anything to do with the way they play this here. I think that it just like is a nice dovetail retroactively. But we'll see what you think of the second movie, because that's what we're doing next week.
I don't know why people want to listen to us talk about the movies after we've read the books, because the movies never really hold up, and I feel like we're never going to be like enjoying them as much as people would like for us to enjoy them. I always feel bad about that.
Sometimes I think that people don't like the movies either and want to hear us validate their opinions.
Oh, that's a way to think about it.
Like, that's how I can be with some stuff. I'll listen to like an episode where they're about to talk about a book that I'm like, oh, they probably fucking hated that book like I did. Let's listen, like, so if you're not one of those people, if you do really like the movies and you're disappointed that we didn't, sorry about it. There's 3 more. So maybe we'll like those better, but I personally, like I said, I liked it more than I remembered liking it, but the problems that I originally had with it were pretty much still there. And the only things that I was like sort of pleasantly surprised by were how much I enjoyed Woody Harrelson's performance, even though his Haymitch is very different. He is just so good and fun to watch. And how much I like Peeta, the actor who plays him. Honestly, you're talking, when you were talking earlier about Peeta seeming a little bit more like doe-eyed in this than he is in the books, a part of me feels like I'm not even sure that's true. It's just that you didn't like Peeta right away. And so you read him with a slant that wasn't really there until he proved to be a better guy.
It's possible.
Because he feels pretty true to character to me. But I may be wrong about that. So chime in, folks, with what you think about that.
I'm going to stand by my conclusions about Peeta in the movie versus Peeta in the book. But I would be interested what folks would have to say. I think, too, that, again, not only was my view as a reader slanted, but, again, I'm reading through Katniss's eyes. So we don't get, like the whole, all of the distrust that she has about Peeta, the ambivalence she has about like, not ambivalence, the fuck is the word? The way she dislikes being in his debt or being in anyone's debt really is like also really missing from the movies. So, it's possible that, I'm used to seeing Peeta through Katniss's eyes only and not getting a more, air quotes, fair view or objective view of Katniss of Peeta from the outside,
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to say about this before we wrap it up?
No. It's already been way too long. I despite what you have just listened to for 2 hours and 16 minutes, I am still looking forward to the next movie. I want to see like if there's any course corrections, see if they lean into some things more, like maybe with the success of the first book, they had a bigger budget maybe and they could like go a little bit harder on things. Like I don't know. I don't know if the same writers and directors are involved. So the second movie could go in any direction, and I'm like really looking forward to seeing what they decide to do. I'm curious again to clock the changes between the books and the movies and see where the movies improve and where they really drop the ball. So don't be dismayed, friends. I'm still into it.
All right. Well, briefly before we wrap it up, you know what we got to do. Yay! Welcome to all of you new patrons. We appreciate you so much. This week we've got Ryan B., Margaret Sessa Hawkins, and Matthew Woodward. Welcome. Appreciate you signing up and becoming a patron and supporting the show so much. Can't even tell you. Hope that you all are enjoying all of that yummy content. All of that, the back episodes of everything. There is so much. And also just wanting to remind everybody, you can become a patron for free just to follow us for updates. Patreon.com/unspoiled. Come and hang out and see some occasionally just postings of me live reading, for example, to RoShawn the final chapters of the last book. Or not the final chapters. It was a penultimate final chapter? Yeah. Yes. But anyway, patreon.com/unspoiled. And also don't forget to join the Discord if you haven't already, because the Hunger Games chats are pretty active, as are the Song of Ice and Fire chats. So if you're somebody who really desperately wants to talk spoilers with other people who also know how things go, that's the place to be. Lots of combos going on there and lots of arguing, but like, good arguing. The kind of arguing that all fandoms thrive on. That is our bread and butter. All right, everybody. Thank you again so much for listening. We love you. Until next time. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Are you coming to the tree where dead men call out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.